So this is will be very spontaneous, kind of like intermittent play, because we don't come from the game world, so we come from the outside and bring, I suppose, provocations from the outside, it could be called. I'll quickly, so these are the two fields that we hopefully bring to your discussion and to some extent. I work in the area as an artist in the area of creative robotics, and Rob's research is in computational creativity, and we, through these two fields and with a little bit of our installation upstairs as well, we will navigate our way to three provocations or questions that we brought for your perusal, I suppose. So I'm at the College of Fine Arts. We've last year launched the lab for creative robotics, the Creative Robotics Lab. I'm the deputy director there. And here in the broader slide of a quite familiar future vision that has become present now is, this is an android robot that we had a visit from Tokyo in the lab. So we ourselves, we don't work in humanoid robotics at all, but I brought this slide basically to just very briefly introduce the idea of the subject of social robotics and human-robot interaction into the forum, I suppose, because that is really in robotics is now, I think, there's statistics that say 80% of robotics, the actual research and funding go into research that is related to human-robot interaction, so perhaps not directly human-robot interaction, but technologies developed for human-robot interaction. So I suppose, I don't know, the reality that we're faced with now is that very, very soon from now we will live with robots. Not robots are everywhere as they already are, but we will live with them in our everyday lives. We have already talked about the delivery drones and speaking of Google, you know, that has gone around in the news, you know, buying 8 big robotics companies just recently, and Boston Dynamics, one of them, which is, you know, a very, very powerful robotics company. So I'm very curious what they're going to do with that one. But the idea is, and this year also the ISO standard, the International Standard Organization, is bringing out the first ISO standard, safety standard for human-robot interaction, because this will hit the market enormously. So Japan expects by 2030 that 50% of all robot sales are social robots, robots that normal people, non-experts interact with on a daily basis. So, and the area of creative robotics, to come back, is we are in a very strong dialogue with the fields of human-robot interaction and social robotics, but we bring in experimental arts and performance and so forth, other fields into the area of robotics that in most robotics labs wouldn't be in contact with. And this is then also, I suppose now you can talk Now you are prepared when you go up to the second floor. It won't sound quite that loud because that was 4 robots at the same time. But that's the work that we brought to the science fiction exhibition as well, and very, I suppose, on the other end of the Android spectrum of social robotics. I suppose we embed very machinic machinic machines, in a sense of not, they don't want to pretend to be human or pet-like or anything like that at all, but bring them in very close contact with humans. And in this case, we embed them into the walls, and they become just habitats of the gallery for the space they're living there. And they have their own kind of like social the awareness of each other, that they're not very aware of what humans are as such. They're just moving, strange, weird moving things for them that they're curious about. So it's the other spectrum of living with robotics that we're actually interested in, where the robots are still machines and we don't pretend that they're not machines, and how we then live with them, I suppose. And this is, I suppose, where the connection, I make the connection, I've already made the connection, I'm unaware to you, to creative, computational creativity, because that's what our robots are motivated by, and where some of our, the field that some of our provocations later on will sit on as well. Do you want to talk a bit about the background?
Okay, so my background, my research area is in computational creativity, which is a subfield of artificial intelligence that looks at the creative processes. I'm particularly interested in what motivates people to be creative and how can we model that in an artificial system. So my interest is in computationally modeling curiosity. The flip side of that is computationally modeling boredom, which is what the robots are upstairs. They're eternally bored by their environment, and so they try and change it. So we bring these things together in the robots, and we're interested in building increasingly creative and bored robots into the world. So I'm interested. So the fundamentals of that are really very simple. We as humans have a preference for a certain amount of novelty in the world, the amount of novelty that we can learn from relatively easily. So this spike in the curve is really just, things are similar but different from what you've experienced before. That's an optimal place to learn from them, and we can obviously develop that in a machine learning system. We end up with what are called intrinsically motivated systems, where you don't necessarily have a goal for a machine learning algorithm, but rather the goal is to learn, and they continue to learn on an ongoing basis. And that, of course, is where we're kind of jumping off into what might that do within a games environment when you have this open-ended learning within the game. And even though that's sort of uncontrollable and very risky for anyone who's actually producing something that's got to make some money, fortunately we get paid by the government, so we can do that. Not this government even, but So we can talk about that.
Do you not want to go back? Yeah. So then we immediately come to the first provocation, and that follows straight on the back from the work we have upstairs, I suppose. But it was briefly mentioned in the previous talk with robotics. But there's obviously we've seen it as already in augmented reality. But there's a very I believe in the future, most certainly, that the digital and the physical are moving much closer together, and a lot of digital processes will affect the physical world, and up to the point where we have it with telerobotics or where we also have physical actors, basically, that are obviously also again digitally controlled but affecting the world, or we are playing with physical actors. So
the question is, if we're going to have social robotics, how do you look towards games? If social robotics are going to be such a large thing that so much attention is being paid to them now, there's an opportunity for the games to move into that. How are those social robots going to play games? And how is the games industry going to be part of that evolution?
This is just an example of an image of this is how the physical environment looks like after our robots have played around in it a couple of weeks. And the next provocation is then when games reinvent themselves. We brought a project.
So in the field of computational creativity, there's a few people who are very interested in looking at the creative aspects of game design. So in particular, Mike Cook, who's quite well known as an independent game designer within certain circles himself, has developed a computational creative system called Angelina, and Angelina designs games. Effectively, being given some game mechanics, then goes about creating levels that exploit those game mechanics, and then really the the game player's job is to try and discover the mechanics that are being used. This is not unfamiliar from a game designer's role of trying to look to how you're making an interesting experience. So Mike's work, he's still doing his PhD now at Goldsmiths, but oh no, he's just finished. He's just finished his PhD, but he's waiting to get the title. Very interesting work, and I think maybe something that could link in nicely to what you're discussing about the future of games, because obviously this has the opportunity not only for being a tool for game designers, but also for being an ongoing evolution of a game once as it's being played.
Yeah, and then the last one, again back to robots. That's that's kind of like a, I don't know, a close proximity to fun provocation, but there's an actual example. I'll show this next slide. Axel Strashnoy, he actually exhibited parts of his work here in Liverpool in 2011, I think it was. But he had an artist residency at one of the big robotics labs at CMU, yes, in Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh. And what was interesting is basically as an artist, again, he could take this question further. So you are, investing your life's work in artificial intelligence, but with this artificial intelligence, if machines in fact become intelligent and in fact become creative, then certainly they do want to play, and they will have experiences. That's where it starts, right? As soon as they have experiences, then there's a notion of, in your case now, play. What Axel did was a performance. He created he put this was a provocation to the AI and robotics researchers. One of the robots was a performer that invented performances, and the other robot was an audience member. So this was an artwork, we were quite intrigued by that did not involve any audiences, was never made for an audience. Most of the time the audience actually doesn't see it, they only see videos, recordings of that, so it only plays in the robot world. And but the challenge of the robotic performer is to entertain the robotic audience. So they...
Where that goes, we don't know. We just threw that in there.
But certainly it comes back to what you said, Roger, in terms of the spectator, and it was very interesting for me to hear because I didn't know that at all. I certainly would not watch other people playing games for hours, I think, but they could be, of course, then other artificial intelligence is playing games, and I would imagine there's a market in there watching that as well, right? So yeah, that's the last.
That's it.
Provocation.
Brilliant.
Very quick.
Thank you very, very much.